So we have quite some experts on private labels / private brands, as I love to call it. We have Murli from Nilgiris, and I'm really looking forward to learn a lot from him on how, like I was telling him before the session, they've done a brilliant job in dairy private brands. We have Sunil from Nuts and Spices. They have around 26 stores in Chennai. Darshana Shah, she was head of marketing earlier in Future Group for private brands, and now she's senior VP marketing for Hypercity. So she's been exposed to private brand. And we have Ambrish Chheda, who some years back was in Food Bazaar. He's worked on private brands too, and now he's working with, on both the sides, manufacturers as well as retailers. So I think from Ambrish we'll have a very different take because he's also closely working with manufacturers. So private brands, as at least in Future Group we call it a private brand and not a private label, because if a customer chooses to pick a what industry calls private label and leaves a brand, then that the private label is the brand. So I think the customer's choice is the brand. We can call it by any name. And I think in India, as retail itself is very nascent, private brand itself is very, very nascent. All of us retailers, whether it be Nilgiris, Hypercity, other retailers, we all have found our own way to start developing private brands. I mentioned yesterday in the opening session, and I think that will be very relevant for this session, which is in the West, all the retailers, whether it's like Target or Walmart, they all came in 1960s. And it was a supply chain-led companies at that point of time. So even the people who joined private label in the West, in Europe and in US, most of them had supply chain background. It was not the FMCG brand development or brand architecture like a Lever's or a Coke or a Pepsi would follow. But in India, the case is different. In the last 10, 15 years, as companies are coming into India, brands are coming into India, retail is also started at the same time. And a lot of FMCG and food people have joined retail. So right from the beginning, as categories are growing, like, I mean, one of the examples I can give is in 1991, we had only 2-3 cars, Padmini, Ambassador, maybe a Maruti. But today there are 700 models of car. And the consumers are not saying that, okay, that's enough and don't give us more. Consumers love choice. I mean, they still want more cars, more model. It's a never-ending thing. But if you see jams or ketchup or cornflake, there are 3, 4, at best 2-3 brands. I think for a population of 120 crores, most of our categories are under-penetrated. So I think the whole background is that what role is private brand playing? Are we developing the market because there are less brands? Or are we playing a price game where we're saying that we'll recruit consumers? Or how does the margin come in because they make more margin? Or how do you balance? I think that's the debate which I want to have with the panelists. And what I will do is, starting from you, Murli, let's have a 2-3 minute take on each one of you on your how your organization or you are seeing the growth of private brand / private label in India and in your organizations. I think after that we'll have a discussion, all of us. And I'll leave 10 minutes or 5 minutes for a Q&A.
Thanks. Is it on? Okay, slight perspective for people who are in West, may not be aware of South retailer called Nilgiris. We have been in the business for over 100 years. Slight difference vis-a-vis other retailers, and that's where possibly we have a head start, is that our private brands came before and retail came later. So we have been in the business of dairy and bakery. Our manufacturing facilities have been there for over 100 years, and the retail happened only in 1978. Therefore, for us, it was more establishing the retail brand than the product brand. The second perspective here, we are the only food and grocery retail chain which has a franchisee model. And if I were to rewind back to my company-owned format, I remember most of the time was spent in handling retail operations, pilferage, is the store is the hygiene is right, if the attrition is under control, and then going back to supply chain. So I think the amount of time spent on private label was only 5%, and that is also very initial years. In the present model where we have a franchisee operation, the entire operational part, which is rather intense in a retail format, is handled by the franchisee, which leaves us to do nothing else but focus on the private brand. We have 2 manufacturing facilities of bakery and dairy, and therefore we have the advantage of being able to create our own brands, of being able to do a lot of innovations. Just to give you a number, last year we tested out almost about 48 brands, 38 have been successful. Yeah. These includes the range of bakery, the entire range from cakes and pastries to buns and cookies and whatever. And then the dairy, we have I think almost the entire range of dairy products, including Mishti Doi, which is not known in South. Yeah, we have recently launched something called frozen yogurt, which an Indian consumer has to depend on London Dairy, and there's no other Indian brand which can offer a good frozen yogurt in the southern part of the country. So for us, private label or private brand, as Devendra rightly calls, is something which is very fundamental and I think a very important part of our business. Again, for us, private label, the brand being very strong in that side of the country, we actually command a premium over national brands. So if you look at my dairy products, my set curd, my fresh cream, my ghee, and if you look at bakery, my bread, my buns are priced premium to the national brands in the market. So my health cookies, which have launched recently, are more expensive than Britannia. Yeah? So clearly the position is premium. We are very clear that we cannot offer mass products. We are not in the price game. The whole strength of the brand is being able to offer small quantities fresh. So today, if you go to a Nilgiri store, you will find a Nilgiri curd which is manufactured yesterday, the previous day. While if I were to look at a competing brand, it will be at least 3 to 4 days old. So truly in terms of supply chain, which has also been built over the years, we have a large farmer base, almost about 6,000 farmers who have been with us for many long years. So this supply chain, which is daily fresh, has been evolved over a period of time. For us, unlike other retailers who are still getting it right, for us, we've been fortunate to inherit a business which already had a very established supply chain in the fresh category. So in short, private label is a very important part of our business, is a very strong footfall driver. We don't discount. People come to Nilgiri's for the Nilgiri's butter. They come to Nilgiri's for the Nilgiri's whole wheat bread. So clearly, this is an area where we constantly innovate. And obviously, we can't live in 1905 as customers are changing. We are constantly making huge efforts in terms of changing the brand per se. In the last 2 years, the entire packaging has seen a complete shift. So from being a very traditional brand, understanding the customer, we actually moved to far superior packaging, which today stands out in the shelf vis-a-vis even the national brands. So a lot of investment is going there. One of the things which someone was discussing in the break is that do we have the advantage which a national brand has, because they have the reach, they have the scale, they have the time to invest. For us, because private label is the only part of the business, I think the entire business is focused only on that. The biggest advantage we have vis-a-vis national retailers is that today, if I were to launch a product, tomorrow morning, I get a first-hand feedback from my consumer. I don't have to depend on a distributor or a retailer to come back in my next beat plan of any feedback on the product. And the whole effort is by getting the consumer. So when we launch a product, we get the consumer insights, we make necessary changes, we take inputs in terms of price, and then we launch. So really you have an excellent test market happening right there. Manufactured yesterday in the factory, test out today, and in next 7 days you actually have a revised product to suit the market. So I think the brand has to be seen as a brand. I'm sure I'll not take too much time on this, but all the elements, understanding which category to come in, what product to bring in, what is the price point, what is the packaging, I think all these have to be looked at if one were to develop a brand from point of view of building a strong footfall driver. So for us, it is not a discount offering. It is clearly something which adds value to consumer. We have a premium on that.
Yeah. See, we are a Chennai-based retail chain, started in 1999, and basically we are a specialized store in certain food category. Basically, it's only a food store. And our specialization is mainly into dry fruits, spices, tea. These are the 3 major categories. From the very first day we started the business, it was very clear that these 3 categories at least will be only private labels. So it was not that for the sake of adding, we added this private label concept, but then very first day itself, this entire concept was conceptualized to have only the private label categories in these 3 categories. And so far we have never added any of the branded products. Like you take the dates category, dates, there are so many brands available, like the Lion and the Gokulam and so many brands, but we never entertain. It's only our label in certain categories. So that is how we have started the entire concept at all. And today, if you see from the sales perspective, in fact, we are today almost 1/3 of our sales comes from the private label. And in the process today, we have created a brand called Cup and Saucer, which we normally market the entire tea range into that brand name called Cup and Saucer. And today we have about 30 SKUs in the tea range alone. And of that, the most beautiful part is about 8 SKUs have already started going to other supermarkets. So I think this is parallelly, we are just building another business model within the business today. So I think we are just about to launch another 2 more brands, now specifically one for the entire dry fruits and nuts range, and for the spices also we are planning to have 1 more brand. So we'll have 3 more different identities for the private label in the near future, which can be marketed outside our store also. So this is how we operate today.
For Hypercity, being a hypermarket, obviously, so we definitely have our private label, private brand, whatever we call it. And we, from past 2 years, have definitely started putting a lot of focus in this area. So being a hypermarket player, we have food and grocery, we have electronics, we have general merchandise, and we have, unlike in my earlier stint where I was, with DC in Future Group, where we were clearly working on a FMCG kind of a strategy where, so there were indulgent brand, there was home care brand, and there were different brands for different category segments. What we do in Hypercity is slightly different as of now, and we are, of course, still growing the whole the retailer's brand over here. So we have Hypercity every day, which we have taken across food and non-food. So whether it is in our grocery, whether it is in our linen, whether it is in our homeware, so we've taken, because it is an everyday item, so anything and everything which comes under Hypercity every day. We also have an endorser brand strategy, because we clearly believe that customers are loyal today to Hypercity as a brand. So we have Hypercity every day, Hypercity Fresh Basket. We do carry Hypercity as a logo. I mean, as an endorser brand on our private label strategy. So that along with it, and we have Fresh Basket for our cut fruit and vegetable. So we have Maxit. We are also very strong in our general merchandise space. So whether it is in our cycles, in our sports and fitness, in our apparel. So we, across have our private brand as a strategy. The other thing is about quality. Because yes, margin, growing the category are all the realities why any retailer will have its own private label or private brand. To me, whether it is a label or a brand, it's all what we as an industry can talk. Ultimately, what it matters is the customer. What is your customer looking at it? For that customer, when they're buying into my Hypercity every day, it is a brand for them. Because it's going in their basket, the family is consuming it. So the quality plays a very important role here. So that's one big aspect. And second thing, because the kind of consumers or the shoppers that we attract, we also look at a lot of niche categories. So we are venturing into olive oils. We are venturing into rice bran oil. We are venturing into like Nutella. So we look at suppliers internationally. So the team is definitely sourcing that somebody's talking to us for the Italian pastas, pasta sauces, the jam and the chocolate spreads. And also we are definitely looking at those top-end areas and categories. And specifically because we have Waitrose, who's our international and the only the partner here for us in India. So we have done a lot of studies going to Waitrose London, seeing their back-end, how they work. Of course, in India, you do have the supply chain challenge. You first have the vendor challenge. Somebody who's going to manufacture this whole brand for you. So that's one big challenge, any which ways, that we face. But apart from that, we're trying to do a lot of international technology, getting international suppliers to come and do it exclusively for us in Hypercity. The other thing that we are doing is, now one is to have the brand, definitely to have a good packaging, because packaging is where it makes a differentiation on the shelf. How is the customer looking at you vis-a-vis any leader? And we also have a good, better, best strategy. So we very clearly are having Hypercity every day. We have Avorio, let's say in our entire homeware, Avorio and Ibano, which gets into the better and best. We are similarly looking at Supremia and the better, and then we're looking at best. So that is definitely the strategy which, like every other retailer, we also have. But we are also looking at how we can introduce and penetrate finally in the basket of the customer. So we are using our data, our loyalty card, and the analytics very strongly. So today, if a customer is picking up any of my private label or any Hypercity brand, we give points on that. So we exclusively have points mentioned on the package. So there are 2 points, 4 points, 5 points. So you're basically, of course, there is a price benefit, which like every other retailer we give. But beyond that, I'm also giving you loyalty points. So we are more and more pushing it in the customer's basket through our loyalty program, through our customer understanding and our data analytics. So that's where we are doing a lot of work. So I think that's what Hypercity is all about.
The whole rationale for private label from a retailer's perspective is basically driving differentiation, finding the need gaps, what kind of products or categories are not available from the FMCG industry, spot those opportunities and offer it by way of differentiation, number one. Number two, if there is no major differentiation or quality upgradation, then deliver a cost advantage or value for money advantage to the customer, and while doing so, in the process, increase its own margin. Because as we all understand, in food retail, in India especially, the gross margins available for the retailers is quite a challenge compared to the costs. So private label goes a long way in a retailer's ability to address these three key areas and thereby create value by way of differentiation or cost and by increasing the margins. I've had the opportunity of being on both the sides of the table at retailers like Future Group, Food Bazaar, and later at Aditya Birla's More. I've had the opportunity to initiate and set the foundations for the private label program as well as for those chains. What I have generally seen is that over a period of time, the game, Devendra, I understand that it's a very, very nascent subject in India as such. And therefore, generally, the focus is on margins on one hand and lowering the price on the other hand. Whereas the bigger picture is missed out, that the job of a retailer and the private label team is to spot opportunities for creating differentiation, spotting the need gaps from their direct connect with the customers and from what is available in the market, so with the FMCG industry. And thirdly, it is a great opportunity to really localize the tastes and the specifications. So for example, if it is pickles, it is very difficult for a national brand to have pickles for different regions and have so many SKUs. But as we all understand, Indian consumers go by the local tastes, and therefore this is an opportunity for the retailers to really customize those tastes. So I would say, in fact, I'd not like to take more time here, but set the ball rolling. But I'd say that the focus at the nascent stage that the industry has today from the retailer's perspective, I think it has to go to the next level now, especially with the chains which have the volumes on one hand. Now let us look at it from the other side. So I've had the benefit of also guiding the manufacturers who are supplying to the retailers on private label, and there are quite a few issues which I have observed from the manufacturer's perspective, that the real good manufacturers do not want to be a part of the private label program, and if they have been there, they want to withdraw very slowly. Rather, they want to withdraw very quickly from the private label business of theirs. So with that, over to you, Devendra.
So this whole discussion of differentiation, I think we must have a discussion on how to differentiate. Like in soap category, we have 120 soaps in our stores. So should private brands be doing a soap? Because consumers have a lot of choice. But in many categories like jam, ketchup, I mentioned, many like floor cleaner, glass cleaner, there are hardly 2-3 brands where you can add a lot of value. So my question is, how do you decide which category? Like, my question is, how do you decide in which category to launch a private brand? And then you mentioned, Darshana, you also have the good, better, best. Like, I mean, I can add that worldwide and in India, private brand was earlier private label, which started on price advantage, basically to make more margin. But then as years go by, you become smarter and smarter, and eventually, like in the world, today Tesco's Finest is the most expensive chocolate in UK. It's more expensive than any brand in the world, and it sells like crazy. So, like in Germany, there's a chain like Aldi and Lidl. They're $100 billion turnover, and 90 billion comes from private brands, 90%. And the 10% is the P&G and the levers and the all. But then there are many models. There are other retailers who don't want to make it big. They're very clear that we want to be only 10, 15, 20%. So everybody has figured out what they want to do. My question is, in India being in such a nascent stage, one, I want you all to, speak on these two subjects. One, how do you decide which category? And where do you see private brand in 5, 10 years? Like, how big should it be? Or what is the role it should play for retailer? Like, be 90%, be 5%, capturing consumption, or playing for margin?
Slightly wide subject, but I'll try and address. Okay, so for us, so one of the questions which you hear in most of the private label discussions is that you create a private label to fight a national brand and to pull him, get better margins. We don't belong to that category. I think we strongly feel every brand has a role to play. When there are good national brands and there are enough and more clutter in that space, each of them spending so much money in brand awareness, growing consumption, growing market, we don't think we have too much value to add there. So we really don't participate in those. Clearly, there are huge opportunities. So let me speak about our brand. So Nilgiris has been traditionally a bakery and dairy category, and we've been doing a lot of work around that. 2 years back, we actually got a feedback from customers, and part of our regular research is that Nilgiris is seen more as a food brand. They no more see it as a bakery or a dairy brand. So that's when we ventured into options of looking at categories in food outside these two specific bakery and dairy. Staples always there, and that I think every retailer has. But in the FMCG category, we actually looked at various options. So we realized that oil is a huge category. We're not there in oils as a private label brand. However, there's almost everyone in sunflower category. There's almost everyone in the rice brand category. But one category in South which is very big is the gingerly oil category. And there's one very strong brand which is there in almost every kitchen in South called Idayam brand. Very, very strong brand. There are at least 10 other brands which have come and gone trying to compete with that brand, and no one has been able to make any mark. But consumer is very clear. He has to pick up that yellow and blue packet which is there in the market. So we really thought if we can enter that market. I was very worried because we actually were taking on a very strong player. Nilgiris is not a oil brand. It is a bakery and dairy brand, but we still went ahead with it. And the only difference we brought was we got a cold pressed gingerly oil at the same price as the Idayam brand. So this was a better product. The packaging obviously was far superior because obviously a regional player can bring in that much understanding in terms of investments. And we launched it. So within a period of 2 months, we almost 25% of share of the category, which is the largest category of oil in South. Yeah. So first, identifying regional players where there are gaps. This I'm talking of a brand is very strong. There are enough and more players. We find there are a lot of good manufacturers in South, small manufacturers. I'm sure there are equally good numbers in West. Requests coming from Gujarat, where they have a strong manufacturing acumen. However, in terms of reach, in terms of being able to reach, the selling effort is clearly missing. They don't understand sales. So there are enough and more entrepreneurs who have good products, differentiated products, which can bring value to the consumer. And today it's not being done because he doesn't have the reach. So therefore, he is not able to place you. So we actually identify opportunities like these and go ahead. In the categories where national brands are available, so for example, health was one big topic. It's something which everyone keeps talking about. So one talks of multigrain, one talks of cold pressed oil, one talks of low fat. So there's so many things happening in the health. So we, having our own bakery, we actually do huge innovation. I mean, every week, if you were to step into our office on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you will be treated to at least 7-8 types of ice creams or 4-5 types of pastries. So it's actually a great place to be in, yeah. If I don't do my gym, I would actually add up at least 7-8 kilos extra because that's what we do, and that's our role. We have enough of foodies in the system who understand food, who understand trends. We actually sample our products with the consumer. So really, there's a lot of excitement around the food category. So in the category like health, we have been traditionally doing a lot of biscuits. Now we have the manufacturing facility. We understand health is as a concept is being promoted by almost every national player. So can I get into a ragi biscuit like a Britannia does? And what is that value I bring in? So therefore we see in the content, can I do more of ragi? Can I mix ragi and oats? So we try to give a differentiated product in the categories where national brands are spending money. So the whole objective is not to be part of the clutter, but create opportunities either through specialized small-time manufacturers who need space and who can add value to the consumer. And in the categories where there is a clear growth area, for example, health, use your manufacturing facilities for innovation. So that's how we work.
Devendra, may I request, so that we can, in short time, cover as much as possible. the participants to be brief and try and give the answers in
My
bullet points.
apologies. I didn't intend to. I think it's part of my system. I just tend to go on. I'm so sorry.
No, so that, it's such an interesting subject that a lot of areas can be covered, if we can keep
Please
our
shoot,
answers
all
brief
yours, all yours,
and
all
keep it
yours. Please shoot, all
bullet
yours.
points.
No problem.
Now,
Sure.
so for example,
My sincere apologies to the team.
The-
My objective was not to disturb you.
It's okay.
Which categories? So in bullet point, the answers could be, firstly, take the categories where consumers are looking at functional benefits. Those will be easily amenable to private label, rather than very deep involvement and very high emotional benefit, which is the space that the FMCG companies create in the mind map of the market with a huge advertising budget and various other things. So that's one area. And second is areas like health products. There are a lot of opportunities in this space where where companies can launch private label products.
Sunil, Darshana, let's have your take.
See, we at Nuts and Spices, normally we have always been striving to see that how can we give our consumers the best of the products. Basically what FMCG is already giving is, I don't think it's enough. We can do much better. We can give them, the consumers, much better products today from that, any category for that matter. So in the process, in fact, we have developed, in last year we have put a unit for a paneer. Basically paneer in Chennai, we never used to get a good quality paneer. So in fact, we took the initiative, did the trial and error, and then we finally created a product which is a Malai paneer. First time in Chennai we did that. And today we are almost supplying to about almost 25 good signature restaurants in Chennai. And we have launched in our own store also. So this is how we always strive to see that how can we give something better than what is there in the market. So in the process, now we have identified another category. Apart from the dry fruit, spices and tea, we have found that there is one more category which we can do much better. Taking that, like snacks is the one category, we found that the volumes are also quite big and we can give better quality product. So why not do private label in that category also? So we are working on that.
So I agree with Amrish. One definite thing is the opportunity space. Now, how we look at it differently is that we're looking at our consumers, our customer segment. How are they evolving? Today, I mean, anybody coming to modern retail is also aspirational, and especially to hypercity. So how do I launch categories which fits in their aspirational space? So that's why for me an opportunity, like I was saying, olive oil, muesli, oats, the pastas, we're looking at all this whole entire Italian range, because Italian food is now like more, it's becoming next Chinese in India. So that entire range that we are talking about, the jams and spreads, so not just the regular jams and spreads against what we do with Kisan and all, I mean, what all of us have, but we're also looking at the Nutella segment. So that's definitely one thing that so we look at the evolving life segment of the customers, the frozen segment. So like he said, the frozen paneer, peas, the cut and fruit, the cut vegetables, which is again very big with us. I mean, it's a good line with us. So how we have an entire fresh basket in that range. Similarly, we do in our meat and fish area also, in our non-veg section. So, so one is the lifestyle and the segment, which namkeens, which is the other more volume. So that's another thing that we are doing. We are not really looking at very strongly at the regional space, so there is a lot of, because of the volume and we don't have that kind of volume. The other thing are obviously the low-hanging fruits. So where customer is not looking at the brand, and this definitely I've seen it in my stint in Future Group also. Whether it's your waste paper basket or your entire home care, your entire balls and your cotton balls and all the low-hanging fruit where customer is not really looking at brands. They're okay with anything that comes in, as long as it's hygiene and good, and there is price attached to it, which is, so that's another, and that's good margin for us. So that's obviously a second big opportunity. And in a good, better, best strategy, because we definitely, like every other retailer, follow. So we have done a lot with Waitrose, because Waitrose does come in our best category, and how can we create certain lines that way. Bakery is one range which we are developing. So a lot of these kind of things is where we're looking at opportunity or the loss leader. What is definitely tough is personal care and doing your detergents and all that, where even a percentage change in the category, a percentage share from the category is big money, big volume, but very, very, very difficult. So whilst we are doing our hand washes and all what everybody else in the competition space is doing, but again, it's a volume driven, it's emotional, baby and all that. So we are really not yet there in that area. What your next question, DC, was where do we see this whole thing down the line, 5 years? Definitely, I mean, the way you see in the Western world, it is the way forward, not from the margin, but to bring in the stickiness. See, ultimately, no matter what you call it, private brand, private label, bana diya, packaging kar diya, we kept it on the shelf, a customer will buy it once. But what you want is stickiness and to come back again and again. So what do I do for my repeat purchase? How do I have my, go-to-market strategy for the brand? How do I get penetrated in the basket in the household? And then definitely I may have started as a launch from a functional point of view. How do I finally emotionally connect? Because that brand is finally available at my store only. So definitely, apart from margin, category, all the other business proposition, how do I bring in the stickiness? What a private label or a private brand can bring in is definitely what is the way forward.
So Darshana, what you said brings me to the next logical question, which is, if still we are private brand label are in basics and still playing on functional side and not building an emotional cord, how do the private brand industry and all of us, what do we think, what do we need to do to make it premium? Like, when can we charge a premium? Or should the private label industry only play on price? Because worldwide, as I said, it all starts with playing on price, but eventually goes to premium. It's good, better, best. In many categories, the Walmarts and the Tesco's and the Carrefours, their own brands are selling at premium or even above the national brands. So what should be done in India, and what is the way forward? I think we must have a view, because this is a difficult subject.
I think it's a brilliant question, and this is the space that our private label industry has to move to now, is to straddle different segments. And the way to do that would be, first of all, to look at it not as a retailer, but as an FMCG company. You're not a retailer, but the private label division is an FMCG company. When you look at it as an FMCG company, then you will go through the entire exercise of strategic planning and strategic marketing, starting with segmentation, targeting, positioning, finding such positioning which will allow you premiums. And then you come to the product and the product specifications, and then you come to the packaging and then pricing, and then create the distribution. And very important, you have to create the excitement during the launch, and later on you have to sustain that excitement. These are the elements of FMCG play that these FMCG companies do, and not only from the conceptualization stage, but right up to the buyers buying it, and they continuing to create excitement off and on in that category and in that space. So, if the retailers start looking at private label division as an FMCG company inside the company, only then it would happen.
Darshana?
Well, I am not sure about that, because I would still think that a retailer has to think like a retailer, act like a retailer. I am still a retailer. So to start thinking like an FMCG and start creating the whole value chain is something which we currently are not doing it, and I don't think we are planning to do that. But having said that, like, when I was talking about what you're talking, DC, that the way we have it internationally today, people are paying the price for Waitrose, whatever it is. So why can't I have my Supremia? So when we did our chocolates, I was having it on par with Cadbury when we did for Diwali. And we didn't really see, so the moment, and like I said, the moment there is a trust on Hypercity and what Hypercity is bringing in, and the moment I put it in I will definitely do trials, I will definitely, all the other things, your packaging and all of that, but I'm not sure whether I want to behave like an FMCG. I will think like a retailer, but a retailer also makes brands. Today, Tesco has been a brand by a retailer. It's not done by an FMCG. So as a retailer, Hypercity is still a brand, and I know how to create that brand. So thinking like that, but I have enough customer insights. I have the entire customer data, their POS data, the loyalty data, and how do I ensure that my elite customer whom I'm targeting, how do I give them what they want without cutting down the price. So I definitely see an opportunity there. Some of these niche segments that I'm talking, we even do it today. Because Hypercity is really not in the price game. We are still in the value premium game. We today do some of our lines which are on MRP. We don't do really. We do add value by giving them points, by giving them various other things, but definitely not cutting down the price. But I would still feel that I would think like a retailer.
Darshana, I'd just like to add one line to what you have said. I agree with you. The only submission is that the processes that FMCG company go through, right from the market research, consumer insights, not only of your own stores, but consumer insight which is coming from outside of the industry. Right from that to segmentation, targeting, positioning, great packaging, then comes pricing and so on. So those processes have to be carried out. That is what I meant when I said that they have to look at it as an FMCG company. Meaning these processes have to be carried out, which is what is missing in case of some retailers that I have seen.
Sure. It's a very debatable one, but we'll leave it for some other day because are you a retailer or are you an FMCG company? But we can debate that on a separate day. Sunil, your views?
Yeah, I think I too differ here because we cannot start thinking like FMCG because the entire dynamism with which FMCG works and the strategies they do have is very different from a retailer operates. So I think from the retailer's perspective, as a private label, we don't start thinking of marketing the product to say 500 stores or 2,000 stores or 20,000 stores immediately the moment we develop a label. So normally, why do you call it a private label? Because we want to sell it within our stores, like say 20 stores or 100 stores or 200 stores. So that is why it's a private label. So I think I too differ here. Basically, to start with, for a private label, the strategies are very different than an FMCG things. So we have to think it slightly differently here.
Murli?
I'll try and be short.
Take your time.
Okay. So I can tell you in my first 2 years of retail, I was a complete failure because I used all the 14 years of my FMCG experience of Wipro, Perfetti and Gillette in the 2 years of retail. And I was a complete failure because retail, as Darshana rightly said, a retailer cannot think like an FMCG company. So that's one clear part. I think we have a very clear advantage here vis-a-vis FMCG companies. I don't need to extrapolate data which an FMCG company does through a research. Here I have my stores. I know exactly my customers. I can actually do research in my stores. I don't need to do an FMCG approach in terms of getting the research and then extrapolating data to see who my customers are. That's point number one. Point number two, we are operating on a very different level. I think we are not present in 20 lakh outlets. We're not talking of 6 lakhs villages. We're talking of stores in certain urban towns. Therefore, the whole concept of communication, mass media doesn't apply here. It's got to be, we need to look at social media, yes. But can I look at print? I don't think so. In some occasions, Big Bazaar does it because they have some great offers, great days, yes. But on a typical, to build a brand, I cannot use a mass media because the complete spillage, because I'm only present in certain catchments, in certain locations, I'm not present across the country. So that's on the piece, whether we should treat it as an FMCG company. Yes, certain parts of it should be used, but we can't completely pick up that piece. To answer your question, and I think that was a question which completely got digressed, whether we can ever charge a premium on private label. So for us, we are very clear as a brand, we are not getting into non-food. So for us, Nilgiris is completely a food brand. So in food, if I'm able to deliver value to a consumer, if I'm able to give a product which a consumer feels, and Darshana rightly said, the consumer will come first time, second time for trials. If he doesn't like it, if he feels there's something better, he will shift. If he feels you're overpriced, he will shift. So as long as you're able to give value to a consumer today is extremely aware when it comes to food. He is extremely demanding when it comes to food. In a small town where there are not too many brands available, imported brands are yet to reach, the consumer may want it, but it doesn't get it. But in an urban city, the customer can actually find a host of products. And therefore, we can command a premium as long as we're able to deliver value.
Excellent. So I think we have 15 minutes remaining. Is there any question and answers? Because we have a 5-minute presentation, which I think Image is very insisting that I make it. So, but we can have the questions also right now. And you can ask whom you want to ask. Please tell your name, your organization, and to which panel member is the question.
Sir, this is Arvind, and I'm from Dukes.
From?
Dukes, Ravi Foods. We are in manufacturing of
Hyderabad.
wafers. Yeah.
Ravinder Agarwal.
Yes, sir. And my question is, if a private label is not justifying, should the retailer uh, give a favor, or should the retailer see from a different window? Like you see the FMCG company, if your private label is not justifying, is not doing good, then should you look at a different angle, or you should look at as different FMCG company?
So to whom can you,
Anybody can.
anyone wants to take this? Darshana?
What exactly is
Murli?
the question?
He's saying if a private label is not doing well, should you basically shut it or do something or bring back the brands, or like what should you
You
do
are a
about it?
manufacturer. Supplying goods to retail company as a private label. Is that right?
No, they have their own brand called Dukes. Wafers. It's a big business in Hyderabad. His question is, if a private label is not doing well, like an FMCG company, should you shut it, or what should you do? Look at other alternatives in FMCG. So anybody wants to take that?
So, well, I'll just to answer, at least from my perspective, whether it is FMCG or anybody will look at it from the business. You are also out there to do business, right? And if a customer is not liking it, which means that that's why it's not doing well, obviously the first thing any businessman or anybody who has launched it will find out the reasons. So you will definitely want to make it better, figure out the right reasons, whether it's a taste, whether it's a price. Price, then easy. Taste, then obviously you get into the whole development space. But if it's the wrong product in the wrong market or something like that, then obviously, unlike FMCG company, at least the private label, the retailer can withdraw it faster. The way they can launch faster, they can withdraw it also faster. Because that cost is lesser as compared to an FMCG company. And if I had a whole FMCG setup where you're putting so much time in researching over years and then doing so much marketing, creating, testing, and then if I have to take it back, the cost is way high. But in any product, any new product, you launch 10, 8 are definitely going to be a failure. I mean, that's a reality of life, right? So, but the reasons you have to first find out. You're not going to just withdraw just because without finding out the reasons. If you can correct the reasons, you will still continue. Otherwise, obviously, you'll withdraw. You're out there to business.
So again, really the answer to your question is that you have to look at your product category. You have to apply the fundamental principles of marketing, which again start from more strategic work of getting your market segmentation right, understanding your consumers very well, understanding their needs very well, looking at opportunities to find the need gaps in your markets, whether you are a niche player or what, and then position it correctly, brand it well, package it well, apply science of packaging, apply the graphics and designs, and make it look like a good product, and price it well, distribute it well. I think if you look at, as she rightly said, if you look at the reasons why your product is not doing well, you will find your answers. But the basic thing is, you have to do it in a very correct, in a strategic way.
So my take is like what Darshana said, 96% of FMCG products fail in the world. That's Nielsen data. And 72% of private label fail. So you should shut it immediately. If you think there's no future, just shut it. Because nothing, it's not everything you launch will, succeed. So it's okay. Failing is absolutely fine. You must try. Any other question?
Good evening to everybody. My name is Sundaram Iyer. I am going to ask a very stupid question, but it is also a very serious thing if you all want to really pay attention. All you people said about private label quality product, right?
Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, all of you said it is a quality product that you want to offer. How many of you can give me an authentic product? I am talking about food products. I am not from any other industry. I am in food industry for the last 40 years. You said quality product. I will ask a specific question to Mr. Sunil from Chennai. That is just an example. Can you give me an authentic muruk? That is what you call in other parts of the country is called chakli. How many of you in the food industry can you give me an authentic food which I have tasted, say, 50 or 100 years back? Today, every food product absolutely is titled something, you never get that product. You talk about private label, I have to come to your store to buy that from your store because you are selling a product which you say is quality product. I want to come to your store as a private label selling authentic product. Have you thought about it?
Sunil, you got that?
I couldn't got it properly actually. Partly I have got it. So he
Mr.
says-
Sunil, this question is only an example which I gave you, which has to be addressed to you or other speakers.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about authenticity. Can you give authentic products?
Yeah, definitely in the category what we deal with, definitely if we can add, see that is what I told you, we at Nuts and Spices always strive to see that we can give it better than what is there already in the market. Whether it's my store or any other stores or whether it is FMCG or it is a private label, whatever it is. Our striving is only to see that we can better it and do it something better. So definitely it will be most welcome. If it is our category, see we certain categories we don't deal with. So if that category comes, we cannot entertain.
Let me give a perspective to this. For example, during the early days of Aditya Birla Retail's private label program, we had a full-fledged quality department headed by an expert on quality, and there were very...
Excuse me, I differ. I am not referring to quality. I said authentic product. A product which has the taste 50 years back or 100 years back. Can you give me an authentic product? I'm not talking about quality product.
What do you mean by authentic product? If the product is, let us say, pickle for a particular region, what do you mean by authentic product? That it should have the mango which is used in that region, that it should have the oil which is used in that region, and that it should use recipes which are generally used in that region. That's what you mean? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that is missing today.
I think it's a very, very good observation what he's saying, and I tend to agree with him that at national level, especially companies which are into private label program on a national level, they really, really have to understand that different region, हर 100 kilometers में पानी बदल जाता है, taste बदल जाता है, and therefore authenticity of the products from the stores or the cluster of the stores where they are selling it has to be very, very high. So full marks to you for bringing this up, and pickles as an example stands as a very good example that one SKU which is called mango pickle, for example, one product subcategory or product group. Mango pickle in different parts of India will have different mangoes, will have different oils, will have different masalas, and will have different preparation and will have different tastes. It is still called mango pickle. Private label program that addresses this by tying up with regional specialists as manufacturers for that region can address this much better than national FMCG companies. FMCG brand.
Do you want to take that, Sunil?
Okay, what Ambrish told you
is right on the spot.
So what Ambrish told you in a very circuitous way, I'll just tell you through a simple example. When I'm in Bombay, I make it a point to have vada pav. But unfortunately, I will not have time today. I'll have to go to the airport and have it in the airport. And that doesn't compare with what I had outside my campus in Ville Parla. Yeah, so clearly there are pockets, you just cannot do this. So authentic, and especially when you talk of mass production, it's very difficult to go back in age. But one thing I can assure you, that if at all anyone can deliver a near authentic product, that is a private label brand and no national brand. Because private label brand can get manufacturers from small locations, can create small batches, because on a mass level, you can never get what you had, I don't think 50 years back you were born, but say 10 years back. Yeah?
See, today I happened to speak to one of the vendor here. I told them the same thing. See, authenticity, now what you are talking is, I take one incidence where about 4 years back I went to Chitale Bandhu in Pune. They are the manufacturers of this bhakarwadi. They are the world's #1 bhakarwadi maker. See, now what happened is initially they used to make it handmade. They didn't have that machineries to make this bhakarwadi. Now they have mechanized this entire system. Now if you ask me, is there authenticity of the same taste or same what they had earlier? You can't have that. Authenticity is only possible when the volumes are less and it has to be made in a way it has to be made. The problem here is the moment we scale up and we go to a large scale industry and then it getting mechanized, then the authenticity tends to lose. Even that the pickles which he says, what you make pickle at home and what you buy from a bottle pickle are two different pickles. That is where the authenticity, that's a small scale it is possible, but in a bigger scale it is not possible.
So my take on this, I'll make it very brief, is that I don't think it is even a private label subject. It's a total industry subject, including brands. It's everybody's challenge to give authentic product. If you don't give, the customers won't buy, and it will fail. And everybody who does, I mean, anyone who doesn't do that deserves failure. So I think it's everybody's challenge. Even national brands have that challenge. If you say you're some authentic, then you have to be authentic. If you're not, you can't cheat the customer. They'll figure out. So I mean, somebody should not launch a non-authentic only at their own peril. Do we have any other question? This will be the last one.
Yeah, my question stems from the previous one. If national hypermarkets or national retailers cannot give authentic regional taste, then why get into those private labels?
Then why?
Why did you get into pickles?
So I just answered that. Like, if a retailer can't do authentic and if he doesn't give private label, they'll make a big mistake and it won't sell, it'll fail.
Correct. So why has maybe retailers like Big Bazaars or others have entered into pickles as a category?
Everybody does because they think probably they're authentic, but the answers eventually will come by sales. What is the West? What is the analogy from the West? That in the West?
In Europe and in US, the penetration level of private label in a category is highest in snacks and pet food. Whereas in India today, I think everyone has entered into snacks with the private labels. But still we find all the private labels are on 1+1 offer permanent basis. Why is it?
So my experience is in snack food, nobody can afford a 1+1. They're not such kind of margins. But if anybody wants to still take that, I'd leave it on the panel.
So I will answer the first part, which we addressed when we said that in the initial years, a lot of effort has gone into opening up of stores, getting operations right, getting the model right. Therefore, the private label focus was not a very big focus, and the whole effort was just to roll out a certain products. Yeah, I think in the last 2-3 years, people are understanding the need, and that's why, in fact, in the last 1 year, this is my third discussion on private label. So therefore, clearly, it's an important subject. People are understanding it, and this is a time when they have now to focus on the brand. So we did touch upon that part. The second piece on, I think, buy one, get one free. I've heard of olive oil players, but not too many players today do. In the private brand space, I don't think anyone has been doing it. Yeah?
And I think not only private label, every brand does once in a while. So I don't think private label can be singled out for that. So, Amrish, I think we'll close at 6:30. The discussion, it's very clear that it's a very nascent industry. Everybody has their own understanding and it's yet evolving. There are no clear answers. Everybody's following their own strategy. There are many questions people have. Private brands have to really become better on quality. Somebody said it's manufacturer-led. That's absolutely true. Retailers don't own manufacturing plants. Even the worldwide, the biggest companies in the world, all the Fortune 500, in fact, even the Fortune top 10 companies, the biggest brands in soft drink make private label for Walmart, for Tesco. I mean, you name it. There's probably hardly any company which may not make in the West. India is far, far from it. It'll take maybe decades for India to reach there. But I think every year there's a progress. Of course, there are thousands of issues to deliver. They got to be better on quality. There has to be good, better, best. Charging a premium has to start coming in. But I think like any industry which starts from a child and is growing and matures, I think private label is starting to grow, but a long way to go. But I think the last word is yet to come. So I think on that note, I'll thank all of you, Amrish, Darshana, Sunil, and Murli for taking out your time. And thanks to all of you.